Hello and welcome into your Game 4 / reaction to the Bruins making the Stanley Cup Finals. Now, this is kind of a surreal video to even film, to be honest. Now, obviously, when you come into the beginning of a season, your goal is to make the Stanley Cup and to win the Stanley Cup. But as you go into the season, you realize there are 30 other teams that are playing for the same prize you are, and it's very hard to make it here to where the Bruins have made it. And honestly, I believe the Bruins could, but I honestly am surprised. If you told me after Game 1 where we got our doors blown off by Washington 7-0 that I'd be sitting here making a reaction video to a delayed reaction video, I'm sorry about that, but a reaction video nonetheless to the Bruins making the Stanley Cup final and sweeping the conference finals, which I believe they did in 2013 as well. End result wasn't good there, but I'm not too worried about the time off. Now, one thing I want to point out is I kind of want to look at this Carolina series as a whole more so than just like the Game 4, because Game 4 it was kind of a foregone conclusion the Bruins were going to win the series after they went up 3-0. So, to make a long story short, it was a low shot game. The Bruins went up. The Bruins power play made it happen, and they defended the lead. And they held Carolina to only 24 shots. They only had 23 themselves, but they didn't need to have high volume shots. Only gave up 2 penalties in the game, so Carolina only 2 power play opportunities. But if you really want to look at where this series went off the rails for Carolina, it's definitely, you got to look at special teams, really. Now, I did some hand math over here, and if you look, for power plays, Carolina went 1 for 14 the whole series. Their only power play goal being the Sebastian Aho goal in Game 1, which was really kind of fluky, in my opinion, the one goal they got, because it was really blown coverage off the faceoff, and it was a tip-in right in front, and it's going to happen that way. But overall, Carolina's power play just looked sloppy. There was very little structure. Their offensive weapons just weren't getting it done. They were out of form with that, and they were pretty god-awful in the playoffs as well. I think they were the worst team in the playoffs, power play percentage-wise, and 1 for 14 in this round. I think they only had 1 power play goal coming into this round, which it's pretty freaking impressive to make the conference finals with that crap of a power play. Now, I can make jokes about that, but that is pretty impressive when you think about it. The Bruins, on the other hand, had a fantastic power play. Actually, Nashville and Pittsburgh had a worse. Carolina Hurricanes had a 9.6 percentage on the power play. The Bruins had 34. That is night and day difference. And then the Bruins, on the other hand, this series, 7 for 15 on the power play. That's a little under half. As you can't really get half of 15, so that's almost half of the power plays the Bruins scored on. So they're damn near 50% on the power play. And when you have a series with 2 teams that played fairly tight in some instances, Game 3, for example, I believe was tight, if I remember right. I could be misremembering that. But, yeah, Game 3, 2-1, yep. And Carolina bombarded us with shots there, but they just couldn't get it done on their power plays. And really, that's what I look at when I think of this series. I think, wow, one team's power play was just clicking and the other team's wasn't. And also, you got to credit the Bruins penalty kill because they did a fantastic job. But when you see Carolina only had 2 power play goals this whole entire playoffs, it makes you wonder if it's really the Bruins having a great penalty kill, which they have a good penalty kill, or Carolina just being that bad. Because when it comes down to it, I mean, how many goals did the Bruins score this series? 5, 11 plus 17. Yeah, it's 17, right? Yeah, it's 17. So 7 of their 17 goals came on the power play. Whereas 1 of Carolina's 5 came on the power play. But that's insane. 4 games, only 5 goals. And that brings you to the other point you got to look at, which is defense and Tuukka Rask. Tuukka Rask right now, if this team wins the Stanley Cup, Tuukka Rask is going to be lifting the Conn Smythe Trophy. And he'd be the second goalie this decade to win a Conn Smythe Trophy for the Bruins, which would be pretty cool. There's really no one even in shouting distance, I think, of Tuukka at the moment on the Bruins, because you obviously know what Logan Couture is doing right now, but it's not looking too good for his San Jose Sharks. Is there anything here on this page I want to mention? Not really. I'm going to move on to the next slide. And I just want you guys to appreciate this bracket because it's been a weird year. And when I say appreciate, I mean just look at it. I mean, look, I just want to reflect on what happens. You have Columbus in Game 1 being down, like, I want to say it was 4-1 or 3-1 to the Lightning in Game 1. And then they came back and won in regulation. And then the Lightning just went completely downhill. No confidence. You had the Bruins beat the Leafs in what we all suspected would be a long, hard-fought series. And I don't want to rub dirt in Toronto's face here, but there's a good chance Toronto would be where we are had they won that series. You had Carolina upsetting the Capitals, and yes, that is an upset. Hard-fought series there. Carolina then goes on to sweep the Islanders. Islanders swept the Penguins. I didn't know, but I predicted that the Islanders were going to kind of dominate the Penguins. I thought the Islanders would be in the conference finals. But then on the other side, you have Vegas versus San Jose, and some people aren't giving San Jose enough credit. Yes, they've got a lot of calls going their way, but that is a great hockey team that deserves to be where they are. And you can't blame them for Vegas's terrible penalty kill. Then you had the Avalanche upsetting the Avalanche upsetting Calgary, which shocked me. This has just been a strange year. Both the underdogs win in the Central. You had St. Louis win against the Jets, and then Dallas win against the Predators. It's been a weird year. And even though it's been a weird year, one of the favorites, because I say the Bruins were probably the second best team, or should have been the second favorite besides the Lightning, and for them to make it. But in such a weird year, the Bruins played consistent, good hockey, and you've gotten what you've expected out of this team based on who was put in front of them. You got Toronto put in front of you. You expect to beat Toronto. You expect it to go along, and yes, they can win. You acknowledge that, but you expect to beat them. Columbus, you expect to beat them. You're a better team. Carolina, you're a better team. Now, right now, it's looking like you get the Blues, and the Blues were kind of testy for us during the regular season. I don't know if you're exactly a better team than them, but it's going to be a great matchup if you get the Blues. It's going to be a great matchup if you get San Jose, too, and you'll get Joe Thornton coming to Boston to play for the Stanley Cup Final, which is just in the year 2019. That is a weird storyline to read into. You also have David Backes, who could face his former team in the final. So really, you're going to have an interesting storyline. Two former captains. David Backes, former captain of the Blues. Joe Thornton's a little before my time with Boston, but I have done a little research on it, obviously. I want to point out this again. You got Tuukka Rask down here leading the... I'm going to make that bigger. But you got Tuukka Rask just dominating in between the pipes, which he's a big reason why we're here. If he didn't play as good as he did against Toronto, we wouldn't be here. If he wasn't as rock solid as he was against Columbus, because Tuukka Rask was an absolute animal against Columbus. And if Tuukka Rask is off versus Columbus, we might not even be at this point now. Yes, we're a better team on paper than Columbus, but if Tuukka Rask didn't stand on his head for a few games there, you might not be here. Obviously, the Bruins keeping a 1.94 goals against per game. As I mentioned, Carolina only 5 goals in the whole series. It's just been absurd. It's been absurd how good and how resilient the Bruins have been to this playoffs. Going down 2-1 to Columbus, going down 2-1 to the Leafs. So they came back from 2-1 twice to win series. Then they sweep Carolina. Now they get a really long rest, which is good. It benefits them in multiple ways because you need rest. And you could make the argument rest can take Tuukka off his game. Rest can make the boys come out a little bit slower in Game 1. But Game 1 might be the only true time you see it really affect them. That's to be determined, though, because if St. Louis gets multiple days off, which let's say St. Louis wins tonight, they'd then get, what's today's date, the 21st? 21st, it would start the 27th. They get almost a week off, which I think kind of levels it out for both teams being ready and both teams not playing for a bit, because 5 days in hockey is like 10 to 15 in another sport because of how often they play. The Bruins in hockey time have been out for a month, and it feels like it as a fan. I wanted to start right now, but it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. It feels like the off season, even though we have the Stanley Cup Final coming up. You then go to some news coming out. Sweeney not concerned about the long layoff. I don't know if I would say I'm not concerned. I think as a manager, you should be a little concerned about everything. But that's just him showing confidence in his players to be professionals, be the professionals that they are, and come out for Game 1 of the Cup Final ready to go. Chara returns to practice. Now, he's not listed on the injury report at the moment. He's practicing with the team. I'd say Chara is a good go for the Stanley Cup Final, which is big because Chara is a beast on the penalty kill. And even though he's slower, he still is rock solid in that top 4 for the Bruins this playoffs. I think the thing about Chara with some people is when he gets beat, it looks a lot worse than when some other people get beat. But when you're pinned in your zone, there's very few guys I rather have in the zone trying to break up the offensive attack than Zdeno Chara. Big stick, the intelligence of where to be. He makes a lot of good decisions. Yes, I notice his distribution on zone exits isn't the best at times, but overall I think Chara brings more positive than he does bad, and is easily one of the more important defenders on this team. It's really just I know I'm kind of just talking about whatever here, but really I didn't want to go too specific into Game 4 because it was like a few days ago now because I was a little slow to get to it, but yeah, I just can't believe I'm talking about the Bruins in the Stanley Cup Final. I'm going to give a way more in-depth preview to the Stanley Cup Final once the winner's determined. So if St. Louis wins tonight, you'll probably see a video in 2 days. And if the Sharks win, you'll probably see a video the day after or 2 days after the Sharks win. Just me previewing. It's going to be a look more at the Sharks or more at the Blues, depending on who we face. And it's going to be interesting because obviously being on the East Coast, you don't see either team as much. If you've been watching the Western Conference Finals, obviously you know a little bit more. I haven't watched as much of the Western Conference Finals as I would like, but that's life sometimes. I want your predictions. Do you think the Bruins are going to win the Stanley Cup this year? Do you think the rest really affects them that much? Do you think the Blues are a bad matchup? Do you think the Sharks are a bad matchup? Do you think we wipe out any of them? I'm really interested to know what my viewers think, and I want to hear their thoughts on the Bruins and how they think they'll do in the Stanley Cup Final. I personally am fairly confident in the Bruins to be able to pull this off, but obviously once you get in a series, you get a way better feel for what the other team can do and what your team can do against them. As you can see, the schedule's up there, May 27th, what feels like a month away. All the games are at 8 p.m., which I love. I love the 8 p.m. start times. Monday the 27th, Wednesday the 29th, Saturday June 1st, June 3rd on Monday, Thursday June 6th, Sunday June 9th, and Wednesday June 12th. I think my only conflict is with Game 3, but besides that, pretty sure I'm going to be able to watch each game in its entirety. Now, if you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to leave a comment, as I said, I really love the comments. I love the interaction. Feel free to leave a comment. Subscribe down below. It's a little red button. That's how you're going to get notified when I post videos about the Bruins. I'm going to have every video up the day after, no matter what. There's no excuses. It's the Stanley Cup Final. I'm not going to take multiple days. There's no way. If we win the Cup Final, you'll get a video probably maybe even like right after the game. We'll have to see though. It depends on what I'm doing. But for anyone who's watched this video up to this point or is stuck on my channel through thick and thin, through when I took a little time off to everything, thank you for watching. And I pulled the wrong side of my sweatshirt. Go Bruins. I just can't believe this is real. I'll see you guys in the next vid. Bye.